So, I was invited to make a video about my experiences with mental health. And I was first diagnosed with a mental illness in middle school, in late middle school. So, this is something I've been dealing with for a long time, and it's still really hard for me to talk about. It makes me really anxious. It's really nerve wracking. And that has a lot to do with the stigma that still surrounds so much of mental health. And mental health touches, every part of your life. Little things, big things, directly, indirectly, from, the morning. Every morning, this is part of my breakfast, to going to bed at night and whether or not I'll be able to sleep. So I was just going to talk about my experiences and kind of the things that mentally ill people have to balance all the time because of stigma. So I was first diagnosed in, I believe, the eighth grade with depression and mild anxiety. And the brain is a really strange organ. All of these diseases are very, it's so hard to describe exactly how they work and exactly their effects. They're so varied between people because the brain is, you know, it's weird. And it changes over time. So throughout college, my anxiety was getting worse and worse until about a month after graduation, it just kind of reached a breaking point. And now I've been in treatment for that for over a year, probably almost 2 years now. And stuff like behavior disorders and other mood disorders all come out of the woodwork. And now we're thinking maybe instead of depression, I might have an atypical form of bipolar. So, this is a journey for a lot of people that's not completely straightforward. And you really have to advocate for yourself a lot. You know, not every therapist is going to be very receptive to you, but you're also maybe going to find a really great therapist. And I've had a few really great therapists that really helped me out a lot. You're not always going to have a doctor who listens to you, but if you keep pushing, you might get yourself heard or you might find a new, better doctor. We really have to advocate for ourselves a lot. And one of the things that we really have to balance is how functional we can be versus how ill we are. There are a lot of days where I don't feel like I can go to work at all. I just want to curl up in bed and wait until it's tomorrow or 3 weeks from now or something. But you have to go, even if you're not necessarily going to do a great job because you're way off your game or you're having some side effects from your medication. One thing I really have to struggle with is one of my medications gives me amnesia, kind of. It makes it really hard for me to form short-term memory. So there are a lot of details that I just forget. Or sometimes I will turn around to go do something and my mind will completely blank. It's like there's an empty space where something was just a second ago. It disappeared right before my eyes. It's so frustrating, and it can be a problem in daily life and work. Staying organized and stuff like that and keeping track of time is hard. And there you have to balance how much you blame yourself versus how much you can blame your disease. Because people really do expect you to be held very much accountable for all of your actions. And you don't want to, seem like you're just making excuses all the time. But so much of our lives are touched by our mental illness in some form that's not always easy to explain directly, like my weird terrible grasp on time. Yeah, I can't explain to you exactly why that is, but it's been shown that people with depression have a hard time, keeping track of time and how it kind of flows. It's hard to balance reality against what's going on in your brain sometimes. Sometimes you will absolutely know something for a fact, for an absolute fact, but your brain just keeps repeating to you in the loudest voice that the opposite is true. That someone just hates you and thinks you're a total moron for no real reason, and you know that it's not true. And it's hard to balance that. It's hard to know who you can reach out to, when you're feeling that way. And trying to kind of get over that while you're in the middle of doing something, while you're at work, it can be really distracting. And we have to balance, stigma and our fear of stigma against who we really are and what we really deal with. There are more accepted mental illnesses or mental illness symptoms, and there are ones that we think are too ugly, and that make people recoil. I think a lot of it comes from fear, that they might themselves someday experience that, or that they can't explain why it's happening. And it makes us feel like we don't deserve love, you know? So there's just so many layers of stigma going on today, and we've made so many strides. It's amazing. It's really great. But there's also a long way for us to go. And we really have to open our minds